I don't know what time it was exactly. Maybe around 2:13 a.m., but I remember the way the hallway light cut across the living room, like a dagger through the dark. He didn't know I was awake. I had been lying in bed with this tight, burning knot in my chest, like something was deeply wrong. And then I heard it, the vibration of a phone. Not mine. His. That's when I got up, quiet as breath, and walked into the living room.
He was standing there.
Shirtless, phone in hand, and smiling. Not the kind of smile you give your wife when you think she's watching you. This was the smile of someone who had forgotten he was married, someone who thought he was safe. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, watching him type back. And then he saw me. His face dropped. "What are you doing up?" he asked, his voice cracking into something that tried to sound casual. "You scared me." "I could ask you the same thing," I replied, my voice low, almost mechanical. My heartbeat was thundering so hard in my ears I could barely think straight. He turned off the phone. "It's just work. A client. She's in a different time zone." But I'd seen enough. His eyes were too quick to dart away. His hand too eager to shove the phone into his pocket. A familiar scent, vanilla and something floral, clung to his shirt tossed carelessly over the couch. That wasn't my perfume, and I knew he hadn't been working late like he said. Still, I said nothing. Not yet. I walked away that night with the kind of silence that can only mean one thing. War was coming. The next morning, I watched him butter toast and hum to himself like nothing had happened. That alone was infuriating. How dare he act so normal when something inside me was unraveling? He even kissed me on the forehead before leaving for work. "You okay?" he asked with mock concern, as if I hadn't watched him smiling into someone else's soul last night. "I'm fine," I said. That was a lie. But I needed time. I spent the entire day digging. Every detail I had ignored suddenly screamed at me. The weekend trips. The late-night emails. The sudden concern about his gym routine. The cologne I didn't buy him. The unreadable smile when he looked at me and blinked a second too long, as if he was searching for guilt in me. And then came the message. From a number I didn't recognize. "He told me you were crazy. He said you'd try to ruin his life if I ever found out." My breath caught. I stared at the screen, every nerve in my body lighting up. I texted back, "Who is this?" and waited. The typing bubbles started and stopped. "You don't know me, but I know everything." I needed answers, but I also needed to be careful. If what this woman was saying was true, it meant he was setting me up, painting me as unstable, predictable, dangerous. Was that his plan all along? The truth, in pieces, was more haunting than any horror story. I realized that not only had he cheated, he had built a version of me in someone else's mind. A version where I was the villain. My chest felt heavy with betrayal, but also shame, because for a long time I believed him. The little gaslighting moments. The way he'd say, "You're remembering that wrong," or "Don't be so dramatic." Those words were weapons. And now I saw the wounds. I went to the guest bathroom, somewhere he never really looked, and pulled out the box. The one with the receipts, the timelines, the screenshots. I had been collecting them for months, unsure why. Maybe my soul had always known this day would come. He came home that night, cheerful again, asking if I wanted to order sushi. I said yes. And the whole time we ate, I stared at him, wondering how far someone would go to protect their lie. How do you smile at someone you've betrayed? How do you eat beside someone you've poisoned? But more than that, how do you blame the person you betrayed? When he fell asleep, I opened his phone. Yes, I had guessed the password a while ago. Our anniversary date. I know. Ironic, right? And there it was. A thread with someone named Mia. A long one. Photos, too. Voice notes.
Complaints about me.
She's losing it. She went through my stuff again. I can't take it anymore. I hadn't touched his stuff in weeks.
She's not stable, Mia.
If she finds out, she'll go nuclear. My hands went cold. That's when I realized I was never just the wife. I was the scapegoat. He wanted me to explode. He wanted to be the calm, rational one in the breakup. The victim of a woman who couldn't handle reality. But I wasn't going to give him that show.
Not yet.
Instead, I started smiling again, too. I played the role of the loving wife so well, he never saw it coming. I gathered everything. I even printed some of it. I contacted someone I hadn't spoken to in years, his ex-girlfriend. The one he told me was obsessed and crazy. Turns out, she had the same story. Same cheating. Same gaslighting. Same lies. She sent me proof. Screenshots.
Dates.
Messages. It was a pattern. A script. And I wasn't the first actress he cast as unstable. That night, I laid beside him in bed, listening to him snore, and whispered to myself, "Soon, everyone will know." The next morning felt different. Not in a loud way, but in the quiet way a room feels colder when you know a storm is approaching. I made him breakfast. His favorite, scrambled eggs, buttered toast, and black coffee. He smiled,
Kissed my hand.
told me he'd be home late. Liar. But I smiled back. Played the perfect wife. Because now, the mask wasn't just his. I had one too. That day, I met with Mia. Yes, her. The woman he'd been seeing. The woman he told was the problem. She looked nervous standing outside the little cafe downtown, fidgeting with her sleeves. Her lips pressed tightly together as I approached. "Mia?" I asked. She nodded, hesitant. I'm so sorry," she began, voice trembling. "I didn't know," he told me. "He said you were crazy." I interrupted, raising an eyebrow. She nodded again, shame in her eyes. "I'm not," I said. "But I can look the part if he keeps pushing me." We talked. She told me everything. He told her I was emotionally unstable, that I cheated on him, that he was trying to make things work, but I kept sabotaging everything. He said you tried to burn his clothes once. I nearly laughed. I hadn't even raised my voice in 6 months. All the while, he was setting fire to me behind closed doors. "I swear," she added, "if I had known—"
"You didn't," I said.
"But now you do." I showed her my collection. Screenshots. Photos. Receipts. I watched her face shift through guilt, shock, and eventually, disgust. "I feel like such an idiot," she whispered. "We both do." I left that meeting with something I hadn't had in weeks: control. The truth was now sitting between us. And it had weight. Over the next few days, things escalated. Subtly. I started talking to people. Not directly, but carefully. His friends. His boss. His sister. I didn't reveal everything, but I said just enough. "I think something's off lately," I'd mention casually. "He's been coming home really late. Says he's working overtime, but..." Their expressions would shift. Tiny tells. Raised eyebrows. Hesitations. "He hasn't mentioned that," his sister said, narrowing her eyes. The doubt I planted started growing on its own. Meanwhile, I watched him unravel slowly. He sensed something was off, but he couldn't quite place it. My silence unnerved him. The way I didn't ask questions anymore. How I suddenly stopped checking in or caring where he was. He asked, "Is everything okay between us?" And I answered, "Why do you ask?"
He stared at me then.
Like he didn't recognize who I had become.
But I hadn't changed.
I had just stopped begging. The final thread began to unravel on a Friday. I was in the kitchen when he walked in, phone to his ear. He paused when he saw me. Too late. "No, babe. She doesn't suspect a thing." He froze. My eyes locked with his. "I'll call you back," he muttered into the phone, hanging up so quickly it was almost funny. I wiped my hands on a towel. "Doesn't suspect what?" I asked calmly. His face turned pale. It wasn't what you think." "Oh," I said, cocking my head. There was a long silence. "You're misunderstanding everything," he said. His voice wavered. I nodded slowly. "Okay. Then explain it." But he couldn't. Because there was no way to explain what he had done, who he had become, and how he tried to break me down, and then blame me for cracking. That night, I opened the laptop and sent one email to every single person that mattered to him. I didn't need to say much. Just a polite message. In case you're curious about the truth. Attached were screenshots, chat logs, timelines, photos, everything. I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I didn't accuse. I just told the truth. By the next morning, the silence was gone. His phone rang nonstop. His best friend didn't answer his calls. His mother sent a one-line text. You need to talk to her.
Now.
He looked at me, desperation in his eyes. What did you do? I told them the truth. I said. The version you left out. You're trying to ruin my life. I stared at him coldly.
No.
You did that. I'm just giving everyone a front row seat. He started to pace, breathing heavy, muttering things to himself like, I can fix this. I can fix this. Fix what? The lies? The manipulation? The stories he'd spun around me like a spider wrapping its prey? It was too late. The web had collapsed, and he was tangled in it now. He tried damage control, tried to play the victim. But the screenshots didn't lie. The women didn't lie. Even Mia spoke out, saying how he'd twisted everything. And people believed her. Believed me. Because we weren't hysterical. We were honest. And honesty, once seen, cannot be unseen. His world, one built on carefully placed lies, was burning. And I was just watching the flames. The next few days unfolded like a slow-motion car crash. Nothing loud, nothing theatrical, just the eerie, inescapable weight of a man watching his castle collapse, brick by brick, lie by lie. People started withdrawing. Friends he'd known for years stopped responding to his messages. Invitations disappeared. His office environment turned ice cold. Even his boss, once friendly, gave curt nods and short emails. The truth didn't need to scream. It just stood there, undeniable. I didn't gloat. I didn't post online. I didn't call friends to celebrate. I stayed quiet. Because true power isn't loud, it's silent and still. And it shows itself most clearly when others expect you to fall apart, but you don't. He began to unravel in front of me. I can't believe you'd do this to me, he said one night, slamming his fist on the table. I didn't flinch. I didn't do anything to you. I replied, looking him in the eye. You just don't like who you are when the lights are on. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. Because he didn't. He only knew the version of me he could control. The one who stayed quiet, cleaned up his messes, blamed herself when things went wrong. That version of me? She's gone. He started asking me things like, can we work this out? Or what if we start fresh? And I'd tilt my head and ask, would that require you to tell the truth for once? Silence. His days got longer. He stopped sleeping well. He avoided eye contact. Once, I walked into the room and saw him staring into space, mumbling to himself, like a man haunted, not by ghosts, but by himself. And the more I said nothing, the more he panicked. One day, he got a call from HR. He tried to keep his voice down, but I heard him anyway. No, it's not true. She's trying to ruin me. This is a personal issue, not professional. But the problem with living two lives is that eventually one always exposes the other. And his mask had fallen off in both. Mia messaged me again. She said, he came to my apartment begging. I told him I wasn't going to lie for him. He started yelling. Said he lost everything because of me. No, I replied. He lost everything because he thought no one would ever hold him accountable. And then came the turning point. His mother showed up, unannounced, at our door. She looked at me, not with pity, but with apology. I didn't know, she said. I truly didn't. I let her in. We sat for 2 hours. I told her everything, not from a place of anger, but from a place of finality, as if I were filing a report, not burning bridges. And when he walked in and saw her on the couch next to me, he froze. She stood up and said, we need to talk. Alone. I don't know what they said behind that door, but when he came out, he looked smaller. Not physically, but something in him had shrunk, like pride had finally packed up and left. He didn't speak to me for 2 days. And for the first time in a long time, I slept peacefully. Then came the apology. Not the real kind. the strategic kind. "I've been under stress," he said one morning, standing awkwardly in the kitchen. "Maybe I didn't handle things well." Handle? As if his betrayal was a scheduling error. "Is that what we're calling it now?" I asked. I lost control. I made mistakes. But we can move past them." "No," I said calmly. "You can try to move past them. I've already walked away from them." And that's when it hit him. I was done. Not because I was angry, but because I had reached that rare and dangerous place. Peaceful detachment. You see, people like him count on your emotions. They need your tears, your yelling, your heartbreak, because all of that still keeps the story alive. But silence? Silence is the funeral. I started packing my things soon after. Not out of spite, but because I was ready. He watched me fold clothes, unplug chargers, tape boxes. He asked, "So that's it?" "Yes," I replied. "That's it. But what will people think?" "They'll think the truth." And maybe that was the part he hated most, not that he lost me, but that he lost control of the narrative. Because now, when people spoke his name, they didn't whisper admiration. They whispered warning. On my last night in that house, I stood in the doorway of the bedroom we once shared. I didn't feel sadness. I felt clarity. Everything I endured. Every red flag I ignored. Every time I swallowed pain so he could stay comfortable, it all made sense now. I wasn't weak for loving him. He was weak for betraying someone who loved him deeply. And I refused to carry shame for the way I loved. I only carry lessons. As I left, he stood by the doorway.
Silent.
No last words. No grand gestures. Just eyes filled with the weight of a man who finally realized he played the game and lost the only person who ever played it fairly. There's a strange silence that follows the kind of storm I just lived through. Not the silence of loss, but the silence of completion. Like a chapter has ended, and the page is still warm from the ink drying. I walked out of that house carrying nothing more than a few bags and the weight of truth. But even that weight felt light. Because truth, when carried with clarity, doesn't burden, it frees. And for the first time in a long time, I was walking toward something, instead of running away from everything. The angels whispered something to me that morning as I stepped outside. Not in words, but in that divine language of knowing. Now, watch how God restores what was stolen. Because that's the thing about injustice. It thinks it gets the final word. But heaven always has a rebuttal. I didn't need revenge. I didn't crave karma. I just wanted peace. But God? He doesn't just restore, he multiplies. And, oh, did he? Within a few months, the very places I was once overlooked started inviting me in. I got a promotion at work, not because I demanded it, but because I walked in a power that was now undeniable. People saw it in my eyes. The confidence, the clarity, the absence of chaos. One colleague pulled me aside and said, "You look lighter." "I am," I said with a smile. "I'm no longer carrying someone else's darkness." I wasn't the same woman. I didn't laugh the same. I didn't walk the same. I didn't forgive the same. I learned to let people earn space in my life, not beg for it. And strangely, or maybe divinely, the more I healed, the more he unraveled. I'd hear through the grapevine he was struggling, isolated, burnt bridges, rumors swirling, new relationships falling apart before they began. But I didn't smile at that news. I prayed. Because healing doesn't mean celebrating someone's downfall. It means being so whole, you don't even need them to fall in the first place. Let me tell you this clearly. You don't need closure from someone who lied to you. You don't need an apology from the person who watched you cry and still chose to deceive you. Because your healing is not dependent on their regret. Your healing is birthed in your decision to rise, despite their betrayal. And rise I did. Not with noise. Not with announcements. But with grace. With stillness. With that quiet, divine knowing. I didn't deserve what happened to me, but I deserved what came after it. And what came after was beautiful. New friendships that felt like sunlight. Laughter that didn't have to be filtered through pain. Sleep that wasn't interrupted by late-night questions and early morning doubts. I was finally safe because I was finally in alignment with truth. Then one day, I got a letter. Yes, a handwritten letter from him. Inside was a long, winding mess of guilt, sorrow, and reflection. He admitted to everything. Every lie, every betrayal, every mask. He ended with this line: "If I could go back, I'd choose you every time. But now I know you'll never choose me again." And he was right, because I don't go back to places where I had to beg to be seen. I don't return to hands that once held me with deception. Love is sacred. And now so am I. I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, and never read it again. Because I didn't need his words to validate my worth. God already did that. This journey taught me something I'll never forget. People can lie to you, cheat you, try to erase you, but they can never steal your truth. And when that truth finally walks into the light, even your silence will sound like thunder. To anyone who's walked through betrayal, hear me. You are not broken. You are targeted because your light made their shadows uncomfortable. But guess what?
You still shine.
You still rise. You still heal. And the people who thought your kindness was weakness, they'll eventually realize they were never strong enough to stand next to you in the first place.
So walk boldly.
Love deeply. And never apologize for demanding truth. Because you weren't asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person.
And now?
Now you're free. Not because they let you go, but because you finally chose yourself. And heaven smiled the moment you did. So now, child of light, look at you. Standing at the end of this path, stronger, wiser, softer, and somehow more radiant than ever. Do you know what the heavens say about you? They didn't break you. They revealed you. And in that revelation, we saw someone who chose to keep their heart pure, even when the world gave them every reason to become bitter. Someone who didn't harden, didn't seek revenge, didn't curse the pain, but instead rose above it with grace. The kind of grace that only angels recognize. The truth has been exposed, yes. But more importantly, you have been restored. And while they deal with the echoes of their actions, you will walk forward, not as a victim of betrayal, but as a vessel of glory. Because God is not just healing you. He's using you. Your story, your scars, your strength, they will become someone else's miracle. So smile, beloved. Heaven is proud. You survived what was meant to destroy you.
And now?
You are unstoppable.